Hey, it's 5:30 then. Good evening, everyone. Notice hereby given the City Council of City of Alpine, Texas will hold a workshop meeting at 5:30 p.m. on January 11th, 2022 in City Council Chambers at 803 West Holland in the City of Alpine, Texas, for the purpose of considering the attached agenda. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act Government Code, Section 551.043. Public notice. The use of cellular phones and electronic equipment is prohibited in the City Council chambers during meetings of the City Council, except for purpose of explicitly authorized by state law, Texas Government Code, Section 551.023. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the official rules of decorum for City Council meetings available at www.cityofalpine.com/decorum. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Also, public comments and public hearing section of the agenda. Individuals who wish to address the City Council may do so by completing a public comment card and by placing completed cards on the City Secretary's desk no later than 5 minutes before commencement of the meeting. The public comments card may also be completed outlined in www.cityofalpine.com/council comments. A public comment card is not required for speakers who wish to use comment on public hearing items. When speakers are acknowledged, please approach the microphone at the podium and state your name and the ward in which you reside for public record. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the bell will signal the end of each speaker's time. Please conclude speaker comments promptly when the bell rings. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any item not included on the agenda. But if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor and city council members may call a point to order to stop personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be barred. Let's be in order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible, with liberty. We're on the same page, too.
It's been a long week and it's only
Yes,
Tuesday.
it's been a very long week. Okay. City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, all council members are present excluding Councilor Tandy. She's at home positive with COVID.
Oh, no. Well, hope of speedy recovery.
The notice of this meeting was posted on 2 p.m. on January 7th.
Okay. Do we have anybody for public comments?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay. This is a workshop regarding city board and commissions. And I'll turn it over to you, city manager.
So I'm trying to provide as much information, and the packet was available online as well. Little background, this really has been an ongoing issue for many years. It's not just some of the issues that have arisen lately with how do we get people on the board, what's the process, but the actual concept of all of our boards and commissions in general. We're quick to create a board and commission, but sometimes it's hard to stay on top of them, to follow up with them, to get people on them. And so they sit there kind of in limbo. A prime example, of course, is the beautification one. I've been with the city going on 9 years, almost 10, and it's met, I think, once since I've been here. It's not necessarily at their fault, but I don't think we have a proper procedure in place and to stay on top of them as well. Like I said, this is not new. There's currently 9 boards and commissions. That's your Planning and zoning, your airport, which is actually recorded as Alpine advisory. Your parks and recreation, animal advisory, beautification and environmental ordinance or committee, building and standards, the hot, the music, and the transportation. All of them vary at some way, whether they vary by how they're allowed to be on the board, they're varied at how they can be chosen to be on the board. Some are city residents, some can be county residents. It's kind of a smorgasbord of information all throughout our packet, all throughout our ordinances. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity, since it's been a discussion for months, just since, you know, the past 6 months, that we sit down and try to streamline it. Gio's done some great research, which we provided an example in the packet here. I've kind of provided a discussion points. I think these are things that at one point have either been brought up. As Gio and I have discussed, we've realized, hey, this is something we might want to address, but it also provides the council with a better understanding of, okay, what is this board's purpose? What are their requirements? How do I get someone on the board? And instead of having to always go back and, okay, what did we do then? Or did we change it? We have it very streamlined and focused, including having it all in our ordinances in one section and not necessarily throughout our entire ordinance book. The Wimberley packet that was provided is an example of a handbook. It provides the ordinances that shows how they were created, what their mission is, what they're responsible for. It outlines what this individual, when they say, I want to be on a board, is going to do. And I think that's important from the board's perspectives, because I feel like sometimes we get an agenda and it's like, okay, they're trying to do something, but maybe they don't know what exactly they're supposed to do. Are they going completely rogue? And we're all sitting here kind of like, well, what is their purpose? What are they supposed to be looking at? So the very first discussion item is the streamline. As far as, do we want the same number of members on every board? Lucy provided a little bit of information where she had suggested, and she's been on several of our boards, and she is a prior councilwoman as well, with having each board have 5 members and then 2 of them be at large. Jerry Johnson also provided having the 5 members and 1 non-voting staff member. So 5 seems to be the going figure here. With the additional of, do we want at large? Do we need at large? Their qualifications. So depending on what board you're trying to apply for, or you reach out to a council member and want to become part of, kind of determines if you're eligible or not. I know that they've tried to streamline it in the past with it, you know, your council or your ward person is the one who appoints you to their ward. Mr. Johnson suggested maybe we eliminate the ward structure, and if it's 5 members, it's 5 members of the city of Alpine, not necessarily a member from each ward. Maybe you have someone in Ward 2 who wants to be on it, but the only position open is Ward 1, or vice versa. Some of that is a qualification in some of our boards and commissions currently. Term limits. Currently, term limits are a little bit vague. We've got people who've been on the boards and commissions just because as council has changed, council doesn't update, or they don't really know sometimes, like, hey, I can actually update my representative on this board. And do we want to outline that? The packet from Wimberley actually outlined that your term is 2 years. It's from, I believe they indicated from like June to July 1st. It's very structured. I don't know their ins and outs on the timing. Ours could be from election to election, but having that, do we want to put a term limit? Do we want to say that, you know, they serve forever? I believe their building standards or their planning and zoning one has a, you know, a lifespan of however they want to be on the board. Termination is a big issue. I know that being part of prior boards and commissions from the city staff side, you do have, you appoint someone to be on the board, and your expectation is that they're going to go to the meetings and they're going to learn and they're going to understand things so that they can come back to council. But it's unfortunate that you have board members who never show up, or we have the 3 absence. Well, there's nothing in place currently that after that third absence that they're actually removed. You would have some vacancies come open. Do you have a certain number of, exemptions? Well, they can be exempt for one meeting if they can't show up, or, maybe two, or however you want to design that. But I think there needs to be something in place that if they don't show up, that council is aware that, okay, they haven't been there for 5 meetings or 6 meetings, or since they've been appointed, that needs to be made clear to you guys and to them that they're no longer representing the city on that board. Another thing that gets outlined for the majority of them is that they meet once a quarter. So you have some that meet once a quarter, you have some that meet every month. I believe building and standards meets as necessary. Do you want it consistent? I think it's hard to be consistent with the number of meetings if they don't know what their expectations are. And if the expectations get laid out, then they can have a better determination of, okay, no, we don't really need to meet every month, we need to meet quarterly. Or maybe it's like, no, we really do need to meet every month. The chair appointments, making sure that there's always a chair on the board. I know this last month when we had the planning and zoning, we had 2 vacancies come up. It's a good thing we got them filled because we do lose chairs. And the chair really runs these boards and have that understanding of what their responsibilities are. Like I said, that packet also explains it as well. Agendas. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the different agendas for the different boards. They're all formatted slightly different. To be consistent, to have it line up to match the city council. They are basically arms of your body, so that they should follow your rules and regulations, especially with the rules and procedures, Robert's rules, TOMA rules. In the past, we actually had TOMA training for a lot of the boards so that they would understand what's allowable and what's not allowable. They are representing the city and they are discussing city business. So they really do need to follow TOMA rules. And then this one we thought was kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a feel good. It's swearing in of the board members. They're representing the city. To have that official, we're recognizing you as an official board member. It's a small gesture. I think it's important though, because it does recognize that they're taking a really important part of the city. They're the ones who will provide you the guidance on some of the issues coming across the table. They do some of your field work. When there's always a problem, constituents are first to call you, Facebook you, you get to hear about it. But the commissions and the boards do a really good job of trying to say, hey, we're working on these things and we want you to be aware. So to give them that recognition that they're representing the city is pretty important. And you guys can stop me at any time. I'm pretty fast at this and I'll speed through it. One of the other things is mission statements. We have the basic intro for what the board is. If you're on the airport board, you're obviously representing the airport and then the planes and the rules and regulations with FAA. But what is their real purpose? What is their mission? What are we looking for? Same with animal advisory. What is the city really wanting them? The city's mission statement is to provide quality services to the residents of Alpine, or I'm sorry, citizens of Alpine. That is our mission statement. I think each board should have a mission statement to kind of what their purpose is. What are they striving to aim for? The big things I think that for me and as interim, and I know Gio, is the expectations. I think the city needs to focus on key city objectives that are set before the boards every year so that they have a purpose, they have a direction. They meet so often, they have all these thoughts and ideas, but there's no direction for them. There's no like, okay, what does the city want us to do? So if the city says we want you to focus, and I know Gio and I have talked about this, and I think everyone's pretty much aware of it, is the ordinances themselves. So maybe a key focal point is to update the ordinances that apply to their board and commission. It's pretty important. Animal advisory does an awesome job. They stay on top of the state legislation. They stay on top of all of the changes so that the city gets that, hey, this is what's changed. You need to be aware. We need to update our ordinance. It's not just the city wants to put this in place. It's no, this is a state law now. And so they're really good. And that's kind of a forewarning that they're going to be coming before you soon with some changes. But having those key objectives for them to work on, whether it's updating the ordinances, what's allowable and not allowable anymore. Look at our planning and zoning. That's been up and down for years with dealing with buildings and permits, and having a whole group of citizens who are your focal point, the people who are going to provide you that recommendation, do some of the research to understand, okay, this is what the city really would like or would need or would be in the best interest of. And then the one that is really hard because nobody likes to terminate, nobody wants to get rid of, but we do need to reevaluate, do we need all of these boards and commissions? We have a hard time getting people, obviously, the Transportation Committee, since it was established, it has had 2 members the whole time. I don't even know if one of them is still aware he's a member. But where's the committee going to go if it's never, the positions are never filled? So is this something that we honestly need moving forward, or is this something that we can combine with someone else? Beautification and environmental. That was a board and commission, like I said, that was created. Is it something we need to continue, or can we combine it with something else? So I think when we take a look at how do we get people on the boards and, you know, how do we go through the process, I think that's more at the last step of the process at this point. And it's more of, let's design the boards and commissions in the best interest of the city to encourage people that when they come on board, they understand the city has key objectives for the year. The city has, here's a welcome aboard handbook. This is everything that we're going to expect, give you guidance. If you have questions, they're right there. We put it on our website, so if someone's interested, they can peruse through it. Those who are honestly, truly interested in something, they're going to do that. How do I do it? That's where the online application really came into play, is because you do have people who maybe not want to approach you individually, but I really am interested in being on the animal advisory board. How do I do it? Oh, look, the city website has an online application. But once they get on that board, what's their responsibilities? What are they striving to succeed at? What are they trying to accomplish? I think it's important that if we outline everything, and this is going to be a big one, is from a budget perspective, the council and the city is going to understand if your goals and your key objectives, they may have a big financial impact. And if we want to focus on something, and we have a board and commission, I'm going to throw Darren Nance, who's our chair for the Parks Board, out there. He has expectations. He has the engineer report from the Parks department that was done and paid for by the city with all these what ifs. You know, can we do this? Or, you know, they suggested this, or, you know, the splash pad, or, you know, do we have a flood plan? What happens to the parks? They have these items that have been approved and accepted by council, but never truly looked at from a budget perspective, from a key objective of position. Councils change, objectives change, but I think if every year the council had those objectives, when the Parks Board did their due diligence, they went through and tried to look at every objective, and these are ideas and projects that they want to start incorporating, then you can pull that in with the finance and the budget and like, okay, can the city really afford this, or does this become a capital improvement plan? Does this become just an operational plan? So I think there's just a wealth of information and things that we can do, but we need to actually like hit the ground running. I think it's great if we can work through some of the things you guys are thinking of, your concerns, what changes you would like to see. I would like to work back with Rod so that if it's streamlining stuff, that we can get him to start working on streamlining it, because it is going to take some time, and we want to make sure that they're all ideally the same if that's the route we want to go. or that each one is exactly how we want it set up, or if we want to abolish one, what is the impact? I know when we did the music, it was so that we could get the music friendly, and Chris Rugia is not here.
He's on Zoom.
Chris, I'm throwing you under the bus here. It was a music friendly, I don't know if it was a title for our community. I don't know specifically what it was, but is it something that we still need to continue? Or do we move it in with the hot and have it a combined committee? Transportation, same thing. Is it something that we needed specifically for future funding, for future planning, programming, or is it something we can move in with planning and zoning? But to take a kind of a back and forth conversation with those.
Let me toss in a couple of thoughts for the council as you'll consider what you want to do. Cities don't have to have all of these committees. We do have to have a planning and zoning committee. We do have to have the ability for property owners to come in and seek a variance or an appeal of a zoning issue, planning issue, and that's by law. And so we have to have that. The Building and Standards Ordinance Committee seems to me that is something that's pretty similar to planning and zoning, but that would be y'all's decision. The hot committee and the music committee seem to be sort of closely allied as far as some of their goals. And like Megan said, I'm not sure what the transportation committee's done other than I think they may have weighed in a little bit when TxDOT was doing the planning for bypass or other stuff around Alpine 2 or 3 years ago. But so those are just comments for y'all to mull over as you think about what you want to do. I do agree with Megan that it sure would be easier. I think if we had the same language creating each board and the same standards for getting appointed and the same standards for getting off if you don't show up to the meetings, and maybe even have standards for making sure they have frequent, not frequent meetings, but meetings often enough to be meaningful. So
I agree with you, and I think we should start with trying to see how we're going to, which ones we're going to abolish. I agree with a lot of what Rod said. The beautification of environment, I think, can be handled by parks. There's no need for that. We have so many boards that we're scattering the people that are active. I think if we abolish some, it will allow us to fill these positions with people that are interested in doing this. The building and standards, I think once we get that position filled with the building inspector and all that, they can handle all that. We don't need a building and standards. What we do need is a board of appeals. And that's part of the international property maintenance. But that I feel we can, I don't feel that we need to put in right now. I think that's the director's job to put in once we get to that point.
Is the Board of Appeals the same as Board of Adjustments?
I believe it is.
Because that was thrown around
It is.
before the building standards was even created. And I think they tried, I've already made notes, but I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I feel that
council is the board of appeals, so to speak.
so I feel that we should just abolish it, let them deal with that when it comes in. The transportation, it's like Rod said, it was a big deal when they were having some issues with that, but right now at this point, is there really a need for that? But the music committee, if we don't need it, I think we have a very, very strong tourism department as far as with Chris and Heather. They handle most of that. The only concern I have is that tied into a grant.
That's where if Chris is listening,
I think it is.
He's ready to speak, I believe. He's off mute. So actually, he'd like to speak. So Chris, can you go ahead? And...
Yes, please. Can you all hear me?
yes.
Wonderful. The Music Advisory Board is a requirement of our Texas Music Friendly Community Certification. It's a program through the Texas Music Office. And so it's different from the Hotel Occupancy Tax Committee in that sense that it's actually a requirement. And so the intention of the Texas Music Office is part of the governor's office. So this is a program that certifies, and then I'm the liaison to the Texas Music Office for that certification. And so I interface with the governor's office for music industry interests. And so then the board, the intention of that board, as defined by the Texas Music Office, is to give Alpine's music industry, which is the businesses, the venues that have live music, and also the musicians that play, to give them an interface with the city. And that's through me and through that board. And so, so far, what they have done is, for example, give feedback on the noise ordinance that was drafted by Chief Martin. That's now, it's just still pending. Those discussions are still pending, but that gives a forum for people who are interested in performing, listening to businesses benefiting music. And so it's part of the certification is what it comes down to. And so, yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that's what that one is. And in terms of the hotel occupancy tax committee, that serves a one time a year for the most part purpose of evaluating the grant applications that come in. And that gives you guys the recommendation that you need to appropriate the hot funds. So those are the purposes for those two. I would argue that both of them are of value. And I'm perfectly happy to administer both of those following whichever policies, procedures you guys set forth for all of the boards and commissions.
I may make one comment. It would not be improper if the council wanted to appoint the same or similar members to each of those committees. We don't necessarily have to be completely separate membership. They just need to be called separate committees.
That could be, though the music one is very topic specific, and I don't know that the musicians would be. So is the hotel occupancy tax one. It's intended to be people who are interested in the tourism industry, of which music is a part, but only a part. So that it might be a challenge to combine them.
Chris, what would your thoughts be on actually combining them into a tourism committee with the mission and specifics to addressing tourism, music friendly committee or community?
My only thing would be, I would check with the Texas Music Office to make sure that that music as one of the subjects for the committee was sufficient to keep our certification. But if that is the case, then I don't have a problem with that.
So it sounds like they're both tourism
Related.
Or centered. And then you would have a little bit, you'd have a little bit of all value to your tourism, your music, your hoteliers, a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, the big question in my mind really is that what does the governor's office have to say about it? And will we keep our certification if we dilute the focus of that committee?
You ought to just leave the two the way they are.
Those two aren't a problem.
And
I have some thoughts.
I'd leave the music committee and the hotel occupancy tax committee.
I think they're fine. I don't think those have ever been the problems.
No,
I had GL look up the last time everybody met. I do want to say that when I first got elected, we talked about making these consistent, and nothing ever happened. That's what most of this needs. But if a committee has never met, let's drop it. We have one that hadn't met since 2019. Let's drop it. I think these chairs need to get with us. Let us know what they think they should be doing. I can't tell you who part of these chairs are. We know Darren, I know Chris, I know Abby. These other people, I know Patsy because I'm on that one. Airport advisory, nobody ever comes in here. They came in with an ordinance one day, but we've never seen anybody. If they want us to help us, they should be coming and reporting to us. Is that not right?
So
I agree with some of that, but
Yeah.
we've let them down because there has been ordinances that have been passed that states that we hold meetings at the beginning and we let them know what we as council expect, what we want them to work on. We've never done that. It also states that they will report quarterly to us. We've never asked for that. So I don't
We should
feel,
have to, if they're reading, when they get on there, and I want to be the chair, I guarantee you, Abby and Chris and Darren have read these. They know what
so,
they're.
but that's not the way it's written. We have an ordinance right now stating we will do that.
So it is changing, and poor Darren, he showed up. He will be reporting on the 18th. It has been dropped on the city side. It was a regular thing. I can't account for the past, but I can account moving forward. So Darren Nance took the short end of, or the short stick here. He will be reporting for the Parks and Recreation Board next month or next week. I've started contacting all the different boards that are active. He was my first attempt, but they will be scheduled every month so that they
Every time
can.
they meet, if they're not meeting all the time, there's no sense for us to talk to them. But if they're meeting quarterly, you know, even if they send something in and we put it in a packet and we just read it, it's fine.
And that's why I want to start with the active ones, because you do have active
I know.
boards that
Yeah.
they need to come. But you also have to understand, it says that the city will provide that guidance as well. What are your expectations? That's where this key city objectives. You want, as a council in the legislative body, you have goals, you have priorities, you have expectations. They're the ones who help you find the documentation, the paperwork. If you want a splash pad, or if you have a priority that you want to improve parks, then that's something that Darren's committee would go, okay, these are ways we think you could improve the parks. But when they present the reports and they present the recommendations, it also has to take into consideration is in the budget. So that's where I think these key objectives coming from council is we want you to work on different topics, and we want them to bring their ideas to you for future reference or future budget purposes. But the city has to also ensure that if they come up with all of these ideas and all of these wants, that the money's able to back it. And, you know, I mentioned the airport multiple times. The city has gone after all of these grants, but not once have we sat down prior. Where's the money going to come from? Because it doesn't just come out of thin air. The money has to be there to match these grants. And so when the city commits to things, because it is a back and forth conversation, I know that prior city managers, probably back in 20 years, it's all been done differently. But the recommendation is we want a new lighting system. Okay, well, it's $1 million project. The city has to come up with, you know, $100,000 for the airport. It needs to be properly recorded and budgeted for. The parks has a wealth of ideas, and you'll learn about some of them next week. It's, you know, they want to make the improvements, but we also have to ensure that if they're presenting this information, they're doing their due diligence and taking your key focal points and moving forward with them, that it is a back and forth. So they are going to start coming before you, but there has to be a level of expectation on both sides.
And I think that's something that's been lacking for quite a while, is we haven't
It's
given
it's non-existent.
well,
See, you know, we came on and.
well, it
and
used to be,
handed this here, put people on committees.
Judy,
Why
it
are
used
we
to be
doing that?
that they had that, and then it just like fell by the wayside. You know, I think as a city, we need to say, okay, if you're asking for these monies and it's gonna have to come out of grant money, we have to explain to them, guys, this thing just doesn't come out of thin air. We gotta have matching money for these. And I think that's something that needs to be explained to every board that's gonna ask for grant money. You know, be very specific about it, because I know they get irritated with us and say, well, you know, get a grant. Well, it's easy to get a grant, but you gotta pay it back.
but I think
And
that's part
something
of,
that we're not gonna do is to get in a deep hole of getting grant money and not able to pay it back. We get into debt that way. Okay, we should get the grant money, make sure we have the monies available and move forward. But there for a while, I mean, grants were coming right and left, and then we were left with having to pay them back. Okay,
but that's something that I think us as council has not provided to these councils.
well, that's what
I
I'm,
make the majority of these with, you know, and a lot of them is on Zoom, and I can honestly say that I have done one of these. Parks is the only one that has ever requested a budget and worked around what they feel they have, you know, what they know is there. So I think we need to educate these boards, because a lot of them don't know, and maybe it's because Parks has had, I don't know, maybe it's because we have other counselors on there and that they've explained it. But I think it's all, we haven't given them what they need.
Well, that's what I was saying,
So
that
we
we
need to
need to give
start-
their expectations. That's what's expected. This is what you can do and can't do. You know, there needs to be some direction from the city.
So
And-
one, and I don't mean to interrupt, Mayor, because you guys are talking about one thing that we're gonna try and move forward with, and we asked Judy to sponsor it on the agenda. Is on the next agenda that we have that discussion with, that we want the Parks Board to work on these key city things. Right now, what we kind of are looking at is ordinances. So those are that's your kind of your rule book. So we want to present to council that we start focusing on certain things and you give these tasks so that when they have a meeting, they're not only educating themselves because they're having to learn. Not all parks operate the same way. Not all of them are listed in our ordinances, operating hours. The airport board, because Isabel's right here, has rules and regulations that as legislation changes, FAA rules change, that should be reviewed and updated. Ordinances, there are ordinances we have in place that they have themselves have questioned a few times. We're supposed to have a separate board for
Joint Airport Zoning Board.
a joint airport zoning board that was never really established. But I think this is the perfect opportunity that we start putting these key focal points before them. It cleans up the basics, the rules, the procedures, and then we start providing them with, okay, what projects? Then you can look at these projects from a financial aspect. It gives them the opportunity to have the hands-on with, okay, you know, we really need, do we have anything that the lighting system? I think we're the last airport with the oldest lighting system in Texas. Things like this where we can have the sit-down discussion with what are your priorities? Let your boards create the priorities, but you task them with it. What are your 5 priorities, short, long term? What do you want to accomplish? Like I said, Darren, they have a whole wish list. There's little things that they want to focus on. And they do have to get guidance from council because council automatically has to approve, especially when it's city assets. If you're going to make changes on a city asset, it has to be approved. You don't want them to put 500,000 in park equipment and it never go on your assets. You want to avoid stuff like that. But I think there's just so many things we need to do in a short period of time, it feels like, but we have the time. You have people who are actively interested in making these improvements. I think if we could start streamlining it and then we start, like I said, we want to get it before council with, hey, some of the key focal points with the Parks Board. Look at what we want as key focal points with animal advisory. You know, Gio received a couple emails the other day with, hey, where are these ordinances? How do we find these ordinances? Has this been approved? We found out there was an ordinance that went before council twice, but that was never approved. It kind of just disappeared. And so it's getting that back before council, but giving them those tasks and saying, hey, this is what we want you to focus on. And then they can come back to you and say, hey, this is what we're really excited about. They have something to work towards. They have a reason to report. It's not, well, we met and, you know, we discussed.
They have a reason to meet.
Yes, they have reason to meet. They have, it becomes a partnership. And right now I think that it's not a partnership, but it's definitely in the works to become one.
Yeah, and yeah, you're absolutely correct on that, Megan. We had to give them some guidance, number one, then let them provide their mission statement. Okay, but this, you know, when you meet, how many members, this is how you're going to get elected. We can give those guidance. And then part of it is, what is your mission statement at the end? So that also we as council know what's going on over there. What do you guys got? Like you said, you know, what's your priorities? We've got to know. Do we have the monies for that? I mean, I'm a big deal about, I'm like with you, concerned about monies, okay, without having to raise taxes and whatnot.
The
But-
city has done great with going out for grants, and I will never deny that we have been given a wealth of opportunities. It's when those grants have matching that have gotten us in trouble.
Mhm.
And I want to prevent that for the future, because I feel like we're going to start losing out on opportunities because that matching isn't there. The big concern during the budget process was the use of the reserves. Well, when right off the bat, you have to take a portion of your parks fund to meet a match for a grant that was awarded, that hurts you. instead of having, do we have the funds if we get awarded this grant? That's why we changed the policy and we took it before council. It ensures from our side, the finance side and admin side, that you're aware everything that is going to be a grant or has a cost is going to go before you. Airport took advantage of some major grants, and I mean, wealth of opportunities for them that they've needed for probably 20 years. But it hurt because they all came in at the same time. We utilized every aspect of CARES and ARPA and anything and everything, but those also had limitations. So if you know their priorities, and this is a word that I've been using a lot, is then we can plan. Then we know, okay, we want to go after this. We know that this needs to be fixed. Then we can start planning. But we know that airport's trying to fix what they need now, not what they're trying to plan for the future. They need that lighting system. They need the AWAS relocated so that they can grow. You're not going to get additional revenue if the AWAS isn't relocated. They need a layout plan just so that they can grow. All things that, from a planning perspective, we should have started. Parks the same way. They've requested a splash pad. They actually visited an ordinance a couple years, 2 years ago,
For what?
the alcohol in the parks.
No, that was in May. It went for a first reading in May and it never went back for a second reading, early May.
So they did the work, and council does have the right to not take the recommendation. Don't ever think that you don't, you do. It's either you're for or you're against, but to have the conversation. So there's just so much that I want to make sure that that partnership gets formed now. You give them the direction they need. We get every board and commission up and running. We streamline them. And then we have, I guess 3 years ago, we had, I think you might have been there, Isabel, we had a committee meeting. Rick Stevens led it, and it's like, this is what you're required to do. But because things have changed so much, and we've had these resolutions come in and these new committees created, I think we need to sit down and do that again. But we really need to make that ultimate decision as a city, is how many board members do you want? How long do you want them to serve?
And I think that's something that we need to really take into consideration is how are we going to appoint you? How are you going to get appointed? Because yeah, there's wards that are lacking in representation and they stay open forever. So just do them at large and we can fill these slots. Because there's people in other parts of town that are willing to do it. So why are we gonna, shoot ourselves in the foot by not going at large?
Or do you remove the ward requirement?
Yeah,
and you just
remove the ward.
five people
Yeah,
visit?
and so
I think
anybody
we-
on council can then nominate anybody from anywhere in the city. Okay,
I think that would be good, but doing it all at large, as far as like, I still think that we need to recommend somebody, because when we recommend somebody, it aligns with our views. And that's something that we want. But as far as the whole council, having a say in it, I think that should be as far as requirements.
well,
I don't feel that Jerry should tell me, no, I can't have this person. Why? That's who I choose because it aligns with my views.
yeah, but we also need the consideration the views of the entire city.
That's
Okay,
right. And that's why each of us gets one representative. So in one committee, all of us are going to have one. It's not going to be all my people. I'm going to have one. Judy's going to have one. And Jerry's going to have one.
Okay, well,
And Jerry's is not going to align with me, but that's okay. That's what makes council. There's different ideas, different views, and they're kind of in line with ours.
Yeah,
But I
well,
do agree we should not put that they reside in Ward 5 or Ward 2 or
Yeah.
Ward 1.
well, that's what I'm saying. Each person nominates because for too long, I've been here 6 years, going 6 years. There's positions that have been vacant forever. Okay. And
I think personally, and I've thought about this before, I think that it should be maybe place 1 through 5. Each council member will still get to nominate their pick, but it's anybody at large.
well, that's what I'm saying, Gio, is that we get to pick, but it's at large. Okay.
So
not
the
just
council member doesn't have to
Right.
necessarily bring someone from their ward. just
right,
anyone in
right.
the
It's
city.
at large, but everybody on this council should be able to pick someone to get on those committees.
And I think
Yeah,
it's,
I had one individual talk to me about being on the committee. and they don't live in my ward, so I told them there was nothing I could do to help you other than recommend you to someone else, to your council representative.
Yeah,
I
but
do away with the wards.
yeah, but it's up to the council. I mean, you guys are the ones that vote on this, so y'all need to decide how you want to get these folks on this committees, because there's
Wow.
folks that are
I
dying to get.
think I understand what Chris is saying.
I just
And
don't think I don't think we as a council are gonna, excuse the fraternity phrase, blackball somebody just to keep them off. I would imagine whoever we would want on a board, all of us would be in agreement with it and vote unanimously.
Yeah, because I mean, people that come up to you say, hey, I want to get in this committee, they want to do
Yeah.
something. They want to be proactive. You know, not you go to Ward 3 or 4, whatever, and say, hey, I want you on this committee. Do they really want to get on that committee?
I think the question is, okay, if each one of you are picking someone, doesn't matter where in the city they live, they're your representation for you, then once they're picked, they're on the board. Currently, once they're picked, they have to go into the council packet to be appointed by the council as a whole. Is that
Absolutely, yeah.
correct, Chris?
Yes.
And you want to remove the council part because they're representing, each one is representing each one of you.
And with that being said, Jerry, I guess I can ask why my recommendation for Rick Stevens, if you're saying it's not a blackball, may I ask why everybody on here went against me to have him on planning and zoning?
I think right now we're getting off the subject.
Well, no, it's just that what
and I
he's
know what
saying,
you're
we're
saying.
not going to blackball each other, but yes, that is always there and can be done. I feel that, yeah, council can have a reason as far as because of their requirements. Yeah, that's fine. If I do somebody and you knew that, you know what, Chris, that person is not in your ward because of what we were doing now, that's great. But other than that, that should be my choice. And blackballing, it is a possibility and it can happen.
You know,
Yeah.
Rick had told me he didn't want to serve on that board.
Well, he had told, I mean, he had,
But that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
Um,
That's what I'm saying, you know, it's up to you guys.
But it's something we need to address as we streamline.
Right.
If
Right.
each person can pull someone from whatever ward, then we want to put that in the actual packet with the understanding that that person gets, I make my recommendation, does it have to have council approval? Or does it not have to have council approval? That's the real question. If it has to have council approval, we want to make sure that that gets written in the process.
you know,
Right.
but we've already spent almost an hour going back and forth on different things, you know, recommendations, this and that. I would like to see you know what it needs to do. Tell us at this workshop, like today, we're working on which boards and commissions are we keeping? Tomorrow, next month, we're going to work on their qualifications and the requirements. The next meeting, we're going to do this because like I said, we're almost into an hour and we haven't
I can
accomplished,
be here another 20.
we haven't
Mhm.
accomplished anything but going back and forth on different subjects that need to be addressed. But we're going to get to the end of the meeting and not have accomplished.
So
Yeah, and-
what has been noted by me that you guys have all pretty much been in agreement with is the same number of members for every board.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if it's 5 members and 2 at large in the city staff, that's what we're gonna go with, and that's how we'll propose it. That seems to be the norm in a couple of them, or if it's just 5 members and a city staff, that's the direction we'll go as well. We can do an either or.
When you say city staff, who will that entail? Because I know all the meetings that I've attended, it's been Gio, and he does awesome. But we're over, I mean, when you take into consideration that he has to be at all the council meetings and he has to be at airport, he has to be at parks, he has to be, is there a way to
So-
give him some help that
Oh, we
it's not
have city
necessarily
staff.
him?
We have city staff on all of them. Robert Yanis is on the Parks Board. Darren has worked with him. Adelina's on the beautification, which if that we abolish it and we combine the two, she could also be part of that as well when Robert's unavailable. Or she could actually take over in Robert's place. I'm pretty sure he'd be 100% happy with that. We have Abel on the airport board. Jessica Boris is currently working with planning and zoning. As soon as we have a building official, they would be the city representative. Chris is a contract individual. He's not an actual employee, but he is still considered city staff. He is on our hot and our music.
Jennifer's on it.
On animal advisory.
So do we need Geo at every one of them?
He goes to a lot of them for technical issues. I know he helps them set up the Zoom meetings. I don't know if you take the minutes for some of them, do you?
I usually, if there's somebody like Isabel, for example, who's the secretary of the airport board, she'll usually send them over and I might tweak them for, last board approval. And then also on P and Z, I usually try to work on those myself as well. But Jessica, we usually try to put the preliminary minutes of it together first.
Just so that we're not overusing him everywhere.
So I also, that's one thing that we need to put in there, and this is a great opportunity, is, you have these commissions and boards. Before Isabel was appointed as the secretary at large, the chair would actually appoint someone to do the minutes. This could be a responsibility of the chair to ensure that there's someone on that board or commission that actually handles that, and that would relieve some of the stress. But we need to also ensure that the procedures and the process are all the same. A handwritten squiggly note with, hey, this is what we did, doesn't really work. Because if you've noticed, we do try to put the minutes online so people can see what's been going on with our boards and commissions. So that's a responsibility that can be added to a board and commission position.
And I think that's something that they should look at when choosing their chair. And and with us choosing the chair, I personally feel we shouldn't. I feel it should be the board, because I don't know what Isabel is capable of doing, or Lucy, or anybody. I mean, we could all be, they're there. They're the ones that know, well, they know Robert's rules. She's able to handle it. She's outgoing. She can do it. With us doing it, I know I don't personally know a lot of these people. And I vote because, okay, but do I know that person's going to be able to handle the chair? No, I don't, because I don't know them. I haven't seen them.
So then that's a great opportunity to put, as far as chair appointments, that it's handled by boards and commissions.
They know.
Agree with you on that one. I think it should be the committee itself to appoint their own leadership. Okay, but there, as a city, we, here's your expectations. Okay, but you appoint your own chair.
That's the key to all of this, is you've got to put it in writing and have it documented what your expectations are. I mean, I think this is great. I'm pretty sure every board representative in here will look at it like, yeah, I really want Darren to be my chair, because he has put in 120%. And maybe someone comes before council like, hey, yeah, I think I might want to be chair. Perfect thing. We put it in the ordinances so that it's outlined and everyone's the same. Noted.
And then like Darren would know, hey, if I want to go for chair, or they're wanting me, it's up to him to make sure that he knows Robert's rules, that he knows how to run the meeting. So, when accepting it from your board, you need to know that there's going to be a little bit more expectations from the chair. He's going to have to go out and learn Robert's rules and that type of thing.
And, also something that I had said when I first came here, I wanted a report from every department and every committee. I was told, well, we're not going to do that.
Everyone handles things differently.
But I think every board should report quarterly and let council know where we're at. What are we doing? Because oftentimes citizens know more about it than we do.
Yes.
Okay, because of friendships and whatnot, or being neighbors. But they should come in, have the chair come in, report to us.
I just want to say now that as all these departments and boards and commissions, just be prepared.
Oh, yeah.
The meetings will be a little bit longer, because they do have a wealth of information that they have yet to sit down and have that conversation. Look at Don with the library. He was catching you up from 2019. So I think this is a perfect opportunity. But just be aware the next couple of months, the meetings may be a little longer, because there will be some discussion items.
Yeah, but that's why I think where, John came in, or Don came in for 19 reporting, bringing us up to date. Do it on a quarterly basis, and they shouldn't be that long. Okay.
Or just the most important, because we also have the option of attending these meetings. So we need to understand too, that these people have a life. We can't be expecting them to come over. It's our responsibility too, to attend some of these meetings. We can go as well as they can come here. So I think that they should report quarterly, but it doesn't have to be I've done A, B, and C to get to D when they come. It can be their big projects, you know.
Streamline.
We don't need to know the little things, like we know what they did because we got an ordinance request or we did this. Let them, you know, just give us a rundown of what it is. It's our responsibility to take an active role in what they're doing for us.
And something that we need to ensure when you attend these committees, that you're there just to attend and nothing more. You're not to get involved with our committees. Because then I think you're being, you're trying to take over or ramrod the meeting. You should sit there, take your notes, make sure it's all ongoing and everything's up and up. But, you know, we should ensure these
And we still
committees
have to
that,
follow TOMA rules.
what's that?
We still
Yeah,
have to follow TOMA rules, so you
Right.
guys couldn't all be there without legally posted.
And I don't think that's ever been an issue, has it? I know there's been a few when I'm in there, and I don't think there's ever been an issue of council getting involved, or, you know, it's really kind of just listening.
yeah, but we need to ensure, because some people kind of get intimidated, like when I walk into a meeting, all of a sudden everybody gets real quiet. I'm just there to observe. That's all I'm there for.
So when we send Daryl, that everyone kind of.
Since you're the chief,
So
Are y'all leaning towards council confirmation still? Because right now, of course, you
Yeah,
make
we
your
confirm,
recommendation, council confirms.
I think we should get out of that and let the committee,
for the chair.
the
I'm
chair, for
actually
the
talking
chair.
about the appointment in
Oh,
general.
no, we, council should still,
Council-
yeah, because we're gonna nominate those.
But are we going to put specific, why, the reasons why council can go against it? Like, is it per requirement? I mean,
So you're thinking some additional guidelines.
yes. I mean, I don't think that I should have the right to tell Judy no to one of hers just because. If I do, I'm going to say, well, Judy, this is why, because he does not meet this requirement.
And then explain it to the, you know, to the rest of the council. So when you vote on it,
But if there's not, if we can't give a reason, then I think it should be council's call, council members' call.
but you know, I know we've gotten all over the place, but we need to start on track about meeting, attendance. That needs to be established right off the bat. So they have their expectations. I think they should go along the same guidelines as we do as council. If you're 3 unexcused, you're out, period.
It's 2.
And, okay, or 2.
And you have several right now
yeah.
that would not qualify. They have not been.
But I think we need to be, on that issue, we need to
Do you want
be
to?
the same on everything. Some of them says that the mayor will be informed, some of them says the city secretary will be informed. Let's try to do some of this to where it's all the same. So let's just, if you want to say mayor and or, that's fine, but like I said, one of them, one board will say the city secretary, one says the mayor, one. So let's do it, let's have some consistency.
I wrote down city secretary. I mean, they're the ones who are managing these boards, so it's only appropriate. So term limits, are you open-ended?
I think align with the council member. But that council, it's like Judy said, they need to be aware that they have that. So I think that first meeting when we, you know, swear everybody in, they should be told, you know, okay, you've got these positions to meet. Not just they continue meeting. If Judy wants to keep that person in, that's great, but then she needs to let them know, you know, I'm going to continue.
So Gio and I have briefly talked about this because he's seen other cities do it with kind of a welcome packet for newly elected. That gives you that, hey, are you aware what you just got yourself into?
Yeah.
And gives you all the things that you need to be aware of. I had mentioned to him that Lucy had sent you an email when you first got elected with, you have to take the TOMA certification, you have to take
Open Meetings Act.
Open Meetings Act, a couple things.
Public information.
So there's a bunch. So we're already kind of behind the scenes working on that because we think it's important.
Yeah, and I think that the same thing should be given to the board.
And
You know,
that's why we really love this handbook.
I
Of
think
course,
we
it
ought-
would
we
adjust
ought to
it to
try to
ourselves.
mimic the handbook.
Except for I can't just take the seal off, okay?
I understand that, but there's a
Why
lot
not?
of,
Who said?
We already talked about it.
yes, as every board, and then the qualifications and expectations, et cetera, are the same in every single
Yes.
board in that handbook.
And Gio was great enough. I don't know if you reached out to them directly, but they also sent him a Word copy of it. So we can go in and make the adjustments to apply it to the city of Alpine. The biggest cleanup will be on the ordinance side. And that's where I said I'd like to request Rod to come in and assist with that, because that is going through and pulling all of the ordinances and updating them, either relocating them into one chapter. Gio did some research on that, where if we want all the boards and commissions where you just pull up one chapter of our ordinances, they're all right there. But then it would have to be going through and omitting them from all the other sections.
Yeah, or updating, because a lot of this haven't been updated. They haven't, so when you, if I don't realize I wasn't here 3 years ago and I pull one up, I don't know to go look for all these.
That
other ordinances.
amended and so that would be some assistance on his end. So we've talked about the number of members, the qualifications, the frequency. I know some of them are quarter. The minimum is to meet quarterly. I think we leave it at a minimum to meet
You're not
quarterly.
leaving open-ended quarterly or as needed.
Well, that's just the minimum. So you have ones that meet more often.
Right.
But I think it's important until that partnership is solid that we keep it quarterly so that they at least try to meet. And then there's that requirement. So if they don't meet, that board is no longer necessary. Maybe there's no reason. I mean, we have several,
We already have an ordinance giving it twice a year.
some of them.
No, it says it will affect the following changes to city advisory boards and commissions. Isn't that include all of them?
So is that one of the ordinances that was,
22217?
yeah, so if you go into our ordinances themselves, see, just like you said. That is what we're trying to clean up, because
Okay.
if you pull up the actual ordinances, some do still say minimum meet quarterly.
Yeah, we've been doing the discussion here, but we also like to hear from some of the board members, their opinion of what we're talking about. I think that's where they came to have some input. So
Let's throw Isabel out there first, and she's sitting close to me. Anything you'd like to?
So I'm the secretary for the airport board. I'm actually not a board member.
This is Isabel Blair, by the way,
Yeah.
just for record
that
purposes.
is about-
And I would say probably the biggest challenge that the airport board has had is the airport board, you've got the airport board, you have the airport staff, operations staff, and then you have City Hall. And these three entities ideally should be working together in a partnership, and that's at sometimes it has been better, but it's not where it needs to be. I don't know about other boards. I'm just talking about what I see at the airport. There's a lot of talent out there that's not being used because of that. So we used to report quarterly to council, and we've gone, the ordinances say that we were advisory to the council, and we've tried to keep that focus. But again, with changes that have happened over the years, it's been really hard. The ordinances say that the board has to work with the financial director to come up with a budget that is then presented to council. And then that's our rule book per se, as we go forward. That has happened in the years that I've been here, which I don't remember. It's been 5
It
years.
actually never happened.
It happened one time when Jessica Garza was here, that we actually got together with Jessica Garza. You were not there at the time. That is the only time it happened.
But does it call for the boards
In the
to?
ordinance, in our ordinance for the airport board, it's outlined that the budget is supposed to be produced by the board and the finance director together, and then brought to the.
So that is in the ordinance, and as the finance director, I'm not the budget organizer. So as an employee, under the finance, it's with the direction from the city manager.
And this isn't to point fingers, I'm just saying that there has been,
Inconsistencies.
There's been a lot of inconsistencies
Yeah,
with the
But I
airport.
think that's what we're trying to do now, Isabel, is let's get a guideline book. This is what the expectations are from each committee, and this what the expectation is from council and from the city manager and whatnot. And I think this is just the start. It's not gonna be done overnight, but I think it'll take several meetings to get this in hand, get this book produced, so that everybody has a copy and everybody starts to follow it for the near future. In case, and you know, we're gonna re-elect city council members, the mayor, or change that city manager, or whatever, but the book will be that this is the guideline that was passed, and we need to stick by it. Because we differentiate quite a bit with the changing of administration. And so it gets all convoluted, but now here's the book. This is your guideline.
well, as a board, we've tried to stick with the ordinance and what we're required to do by the ordinance. That's been our guide. That's the only guide we have, and that's what we've
Right.
gone with.
Mhm.
And
But, you know, moving to the future, I think we're gonna make some major improvements in this, and we're going forward into the future.
do you all have any questions for me?
No, I don't have anybody.
And our board chairman is listening, Robert Moore. Do you
Okay,
have questions for him?
Robert,
Marbert.
Mark, who?
Marbert.
Marbert, okay, I'm
So
sorry.
the airport board is the only one in the ordinance that has any budget input.
Okay,
None of the other boards do.
okay, anybody else want to say anything? Here's your opportunity.
I'll just introduce myself. I'm James Etchison. I'm part of the Animal Advisory Board. I've been deployed to Iraq for a long time, so that's why I was not able to come. So I did a lot of virtual stuff. I believe I'm part of the at-large portion because I've been ostracized to the dark side of Sunny Glen. There's not much I can
Well, you
do.
fit right in with me.
Yeah, perfect. So as much as I'd love to be involved, I'm kind of held back, kind of chained to that area. But as far as the Animal Advisory Board, I know Patsy does a really good job of organizing everything, and we follow the guidelines pretty well. I know because I had to go through a background check to get the position. So a lot of stuff going on there. As far as our funding, a lot of our funding is a lot. ASPCA does a lot of stuff for us. A lot of the local vets do a lot for us. I believe Dr. Mary Dotson's on the board too, so she does a lot of cool stuff with that. As far as that goes, we're pretty good to go. I wish everyone else would hear that because it seems pretty cool.
Yeah, y'all do a great job there at the Animal Advisory Board.
Very
You know,
active.
I will compliment you on that.
Don't ask me any questions. So.
Yeah, but you know, we just wanted to get your input as what you guys think of what we're doing.
Has this been the first time I've been to one of the city council board?
Okay,
I don't really have much to base it on.
okay, well, that's fine.
I've done for our-
Well, we do welcome you. and
Yeah.
We're glad you're
Well,
here.
thanks. Thanks for being
And
here.
welcome back to the States.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Yeah. Lucy,
Hi, I'm Lucia Escobedo, and I have been on the Parks Board and on the Planning and Zoning. I really like those two boards. I do think that, if I'm correct, I remember Rick and Rod putting a meeting together where we had the open meetings and the TOMA and all the board meetings, all the people that were on board meetings were here, and it was really good. There was a lot of, I think we talked about other things that they had questions about, following guidelines and whatnot, and that also helped a lot. I do like the idea of appointing, at large, and then, having the final say of whatever. I think that's a really great idea.
okay. Well, thank you very much, Darren.
Really quickly,
Yes, sir.
I actually wanted to bring something up as well. Lucy's now an employee with us too, and I think the council should also determine whether or not they want employees to remain on the boards. It's been a kind of a gray area for a while. So
Okay, so that's something that we need to consider. Okay. Darren,
Darren, to ask the Parks Board, I feel like we got a great group with Lucy, and I think there's 4 out of 6 of us here actually at this meeting tonight, so it's a very active board, which is great. And that began with Kirsten, the person before me, the chair before me. Like Megan said, we've got a lot of ideas, and I feel like it's a super benefit for us to have that conversation. I try to meet with Megan at least once a month, to know the financial constraints, because that's always there. We're kind of an idea generator, but everything's going to be constrained on the other end by money, which totally makes sense. So I'm looking forward to the next meeting where I can present to you guys kind of where we're at on Parks Board. And I've talked to Gio. I think all this is a great idea as far as standardizing the processes and procedures, getting the welcoming packet and everything else like that, because I think I've been on Parks Board now 2 to 3 years, at least 2 years, and that wasn't there at that time. So codifying some of that is going to make a lot of sense, I think.
Thank you, sir. And I think Megan and Jill hit it on the nail. We do need to have like a welcome package. You are volunteering your time. You should feel like you are part of the committee and part of the city also. So I think that's very, very commendable of you guys for coming up with that idea.
I think we need to have it for council too, as a matter of fact.
I said that at the very beginning also, because I walked in, I had nothing.
Yeah,
It was cold turkey.
Laura Gold wants to make a comment whenever.
Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me, good evening, everybody. Thanks for bringing up this topic and discussing it. I think getting it streamlined is just an awesome, perfect, timely idea. And streamlining the duties between the different boards. And I agree with Judy that if they're not working, they maybe it's not necessary. So I am just tickled pink to find out that you are really thinking about this and you've got a plan and you've got a really good model. The hot committee, as you know, only meets when there's hot money to work on or address. So I'm not sure I'm not sure how you would rearrange or, set rules for that committee. Anyway, I leave that to Chris. Chris is a genius, and Megan and Gio. Anyway, that's good. I'm just really pleased to work with the city and the people that I get to work with. It's a really good crew, a really good bunch of people. Anyway, power on. You guys are doing good.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
I had something that I would like to see put in there too. I don't know if y'all remember, but a few meetings back, ex-counselor Olivas came in and discussed something that he had put in for lights at a park and all that. I think that us as council should take that, instead of just passing it ourselves, should have taken it like to the parks. Because number one, they're given upfront, okay, maybe we're telling them, well, now we'll tell them, you have $5,000 to play with. But then we go out and do something like that and it gets okayed. Well, that just blew everything that they've been working on for the last 6 months or so. So I think, because like on that, we haven't even discussed where we're gonna get the money. That was passed and we have no idea what we're doing with it, and it got lost. So I think we should do something to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Can we follow through on it?
Yeah,
It
let's
didn't get
give it to
lost.
parks.
So the budget was amended to reduce their maintenance for parks and put specific amount of money aside for that one park. But you're right. It was a shock with, oh, by the way, now you're having to do all of this additional, and we just reduced your budget on all of your other parks.
Right, and Parks wasn't even aware of it, I don't
Correct.
think, were you? So I think that we need to do something to make sure that that doesn't happen again. If it's something that has to do with parks and all that, it's a great idea, fine. There should be a way for us to tell them, okay, can you work on this, or this is what I would like to see happen.
And I think that's where the great partnership comes with your boards and commissions, because you have that dialogue and those opportunities, and you have a staff person there. So, hey, I know Sarah Tandy, who's not here, had mentioned about the Legion Park, and it really doesn't function as a park, and some of the concerns and issues. I went straight to Darren and I said, you know what, Darren, when you get this on your agenda, Robert will be there. He'll have an understanding, as well as, do we need to kind of move some of the boulders, make it a little bit more open so that they can utilize more of what is a park. But I think that's a perfect opportunity. It does need to go back to the departments and to the boards, because it does have an impact, and it's not just a finance impact. Unfortunately, with COVID, we had periods of time where we were just extremely short-staffed.
Yeah.
And to add an additional, you need to find lighting and you need to put in bleachers and you need water fountains, and there's 2 people who come to work for 2 weeks. It's hard.
You know, something that I've always thought parks should do is, I don't think I know a small city that has as many parks as Alpine does. I mean, how can, a lot of them are not used, they're not being utilized, they're not kept. Maybe we should just have them look at, if we have 10, maybe we should just have 5. Because we have so many that look bad, and there's no way we can keep them all up.
That is a huge discussion. And that has been a discussion for quite some time. If the city redirected and focused on 3 to 5 parks, you would have a better impact on the community because you can provide the resources, the equipment, the splash pad. Because you'd be freeing up some of those funds.
Yeah.
There are some tied requirements to those as well. So one of the discussions I'll throw back to Darren as a board member is to get some filters on what the community wants and what does our engineer report say on our parks, and that's what they're here for, is if we want to look at something, utilize your boards because they want the city to prosper. They're on it for a reason.
Yeah, because, Legion Park, for example, I got it beat up on that one.
Oh, you are still going to.
And I'm going like, I did help volunteer, the gazebo and do some work there. And I was always under the impression it was the American Legion's park. I did some research. No, it's a city park. And it was supposed to be intended originally for little baseball fields for the kids, little playground type thing. And a year later, so I go visit and we're like, where'd the rocks come from? And, it was just more of a sitting park than anything else. And it's kind of neglected in a way. And yeah, you're right, Chris. We have, I think, too many parks that we can't maintain.
Great opportunity for the boards to figure out which ones are your
priorities.
priorities.
which are the more viable parks for the city, which can bring in the tourism or even the residents to utilize them. But a park like that's out of the way. Then you got Nepal Park. I've never seen anybody there sitting there. It's just a little wedge there and stuff. So yeah, there's stuff that we need to really look at because it'll save us a ton of money also in the upkeep on them.
It will, and
So,
it opens opportunities if we need to make other decisions with the property.
yeah, I mean, if we sell them, it's revenue for the city. But yeah, we do need to, with the parks, sit down with the parks and say, okay, guys, what really do we need here?
Are you taking notes, Darren?
Darren, you got your notepad out?
And that's what we could do, start June or whatever, tell them, okay, this is what we see when new members come in and they haven't had a chance, this is what we as council would like to see happen.
And one of the things I had mentioned is the key city objectives. So on the next agenda, we do have some key city objectives for the parks that we'd like them to start working on. And we understand places and people change, but we've got to start and hit the ground running and get this accomplished, because I think it's in the best interest of the city.
Mhm.
And you start building that partnership and you start building your boards, you'll see a big positive change and impact.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we're headed to that in doing all this, because I feel that, this is just my personal opinion, as council changes, things change with it. I mean, and I agree that it needs to, because different people have different ideas. But the way things are run and the way things are seen, there has to be continued. It has to continue the way it was. I mean, we can't just have it change just because council changed.
And that's why we want
So getting all this done is going to allow it to just flow, and it doesn't matter who's on council.
Right. And that's the reason for the little handbook.
When it helps them as a board to understand there's not the fear as things change. I mean, well, no, these are the directions, this is the ordinance, this is, what we're doing, and the partnership's been formed. It's a team. And it's the same with employees, it's the same with boards and commissions. You want a strong team so that you have a positive, strong impact on our community.
Mhm.
Well, we've got lots of notes here, so we'll definitely have something, not for the 18th, because that's a deadline of 5 tomorrow.
It's not The deadline day.
Gio's not here tomorrow, so. it's
Megan,
my
I would
deadline.
like that.
But definitely in February, we'll get stuff started going before council. We'll do it piece by piece, just to make minor changes if necessary. And then at the end, we'll present a full packet.
Yeah.
But that way, as we're making the changes, we're not giving you 5,000 pages to read at once.
Yeah, and I think, Megan, we should have more workshops aside from a regular city council meeting where we address this.
We can do that.
Okay, because I think we can have more leeway in taking care of just this one particular agenda. I think it's crucial for the city and how it's going to operate in the future.
We probably
So-
don't have everything, so if you'll just kind of with all your notes, what we kind of decided, and then let us know what we still need to work on.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll get drafts going and I'll get with Rod to start working on the ordinance side, because that will be the biggest impact.
Okay. Very good. I mean, we did cover quite a bit and we're a little, but then,
Even though we were all over.
but then we got back,
Between Gio and I, we have a
yeah,
lot.
but then we got back kind of on track. This is what we needed, so.
As Gio
Yeah.
says, we're passionate about what we're doing.
Oh, yeah, I know he is.
Passionate conversations.
I'll get him a lawnmower and some hedgers and,
And I would like to thank all of you that showed up and came in and gave your input and made the time to be here. That's what we need. We need, you all are the ones that are on the boards and commissions. This is going to affect you all. So we appreciate you taking the time and giving us your input.
Judy.
Oh, I think we've needed this ever since I got elected. This is what needs to be done.
Martin.
Be something consistent. It's none of
Yeah,
this.
I agree with the combination of what Rod mentioned and the abolishment of the transportation board.
Yeah, that transportation
We're not
board,
gonna get a bypass, truck bypass or anything, you know?
Maybe not in our lifetime.
yeah, and right now, because I was part of that committee, I was one of the head of the committee. It was a study, and what it was to make sure we had a game plan in place in case there was monies available from TxDOT. Here's our game plan, instead of trying to do it right there last minute. So that study has been concluded. We just wait to see if there's going to be monies for that. So it might not be in our, like you said, Councilman, in our lifetime or whatever, but at least we were prepared for the future. And I think that that particular committee is kind of defunct for right now and should be geared up if if TxDOT says, hey, guess what, we're gonna start looking at it again. So I think that's one we do need to get rid of for
I
right
think
now.
that's maybe what we should do in the other workshop, put down that we will work on what we're gonna keep and what we're gonna let go.
Absolutely. Jerry?
Oh, I think we're definitely on the right track here to clean all this up and get it where it's all the same, basically. Each board has its own mission, but they all have the same mission as far as what they're here to do and who they're going to serve on. But obviously, our hot board has a different mission than building and standards, so I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And I spent some time going through the packet. About 4 hours going through that with my ideas of what we could and couldn't do, which I passed along to Megan and you.
And I want to thank, it was more than 4 hours. Megan.
You need my pink highlighter.
I was trying to minimize. the
I would
packet.
send it back and tell him, bring it back with
A monarch note.
Just like retype it all.
Cliff notes, please. No more than 10.
Yeah.
No,
But-
this actually is kind of the basis and will be handed over to clean up.
But, I want to thank Jerry, Lucy for y'all's input, Gio, Megan. Going forward, I think it'll help Alpine grow in a positive direction. And it'll also benefit the citizens of Alpine. And now with mission statements, being put into the book, and this is what your responsibilities are and whatnot, I think we can be consistent now on all our boards. So moving forward, great job, guys, all of you for taking the initiative.
Well,
Okay.
it's not done. This is step one. Y'all
Yeah,
have done
but, hey,
one.
but make sure it's a condensed version next time, okay? Just highlight it. But if anyone's got anything else to say? None, then we're adjourned. Thank you all very much for the time.
Thank you.